it's Candace with the Inspire You Network, and as always, we're bringing you great information. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and we have Ms. Jennifer Jones, who is a licensed independent clinical social worker in the state of Alabama and licensed certified social worker in the state of Mississippi. She has been in the field for more than 14 years and is now the Deputy Director of Behavioral Health at a local health center and owner of R3 Counseling Services. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'd like to start off by you explaining to us exactly what mental illness is.
Okay. Well, mental illness is a condition that affects a person's mood, thinking, feelings, and or behavior. Usually there's a disturbance in an individual's cognition and emotional regulation or behavior that directly affects their psychological, biological, or developmental processes that causes an impairment in a person's ability for in a social setting, occupational setting, school, or other activities.
Okay. And what are some of the different types of mental illness?
Some of the most common types that we usually see are depression, anxiety disorder, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, obsessive compulsive disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, ADHD, ADD, or some of the most common types, as well as the personality disorders.
Okay. So some of these behaviors that we have looked at before as behavioral issues could very well be mental health issues.
Exactly. Especially when we're looking at behavior issues with children at school. Generally, if they have behavior issues in the classroom and things like that, and the teacher's constantly reporting that the child is maybe defiant or, not being able to sit still or, not paying attention in class and things like that. Sometimes it can actually be ADHD or ADD, and pretty much their attention is off, or either they're hyperactive throughout the class period. So it's important to know that not only those symptoms or those activities should take place in the school environment, but also possibly in the home environment as well, and then also in social settings as well. So then we can get a good case conceptualization as to how these different areas in this child's life is actually being affected.
Okay. So I read that 1 in 5 Americans is actually affected by some type of mental illness, and that African Americans are 20% more likely to suffer from a mental illness. So now we're in a situation with this COVID-19 pandemic where, things have changed. I mean, our whole life, everything has changed. You've got people who are experiencing social isolation, social distancing. They're being at home more with domestic violence situations. There may be child molestation situations. We know that businesses are suffering, they're closing, people are losing income. And so all of this has to add to, whatever stress was there before. So I'm sensing that there has to be a spike in mental illness issues. Talk to us about that.
Yes, with the population that I serve, we have seen a spike in anxiety disorder or, symptoms of anxiety. So we have, people coming in with some of the current stressors of having to adapt to the new normal. And, we have people that are not able to really cope with it. So we have seen a spike in panic disorder or panic attacks for some people. And then we also have some people where they're actually developing, different phobias or, have different responses to what's actually going on. Now, it's important to note if someone is experiencing domestic violence, there is resources out there. When you're living in the house with an abuser or if you're a victim of a domestic violence, there are resources out there. And I do want to point out, if someone is experiencing domestic violence, you could text 22522 and just text "Love Is." and someone will respond and be able to provide you some help at that time.
Okay, please repeat that for us. Repeat that for us.
Yes, text 22522 and type "love is," and someone will be able to respond if you're a victim of domestic violence. Now, for children being in the home with their abusers, one good thing as families and what we could do to help our population and be able to help those kids is pretty much be more active. Call, reach out, talk to the parents, talk to the kids, and not just go about the day as if it's a normal day. If you're an adult family member and you suspect that a child is being abused, this is the time for you to step up, to call, to make contact. And if you're having any doubts or if you're having any concerns or any feelings that someone is being abused, a child is being abused at this time, you can still reach out to Mobile County DHR. They're still doing active investigations. So with that being said, don't think because we're in this pandemic that help is not out there, because it's still very much available.
Okay, good. That's good information. We really need that. Okay, so you had some stats that you wanted to share with us. You want to go ahead and share your screen and talk about those now?
Yes, I sure do. Okay, so pretty much I pulled these infographics from the National Alliance of Mental Illness, and they are one of the largest grassroots organizations that promote mental health and mental health awareness. So Candace, you were saying that 1 in 5 U.S. adults experience mental illness, and you are exactly right. Of that 1 in 5 people, pretty much from that 1 in 5 people, 19% of the U.S. population experiences mental illness, which constitutes to 47.6 million people. And 1 in 25 will experience a serious mental illness, which is 4.6% of the population and constitutes 11.6 million people. And out of that, 17% of the U.S. youth age 6 to 17 experiences a mental illness. Now, I want you to know here that out of that 47.6 million people, only 43% of those adult individuals receive some type of treatment for mental health issues. And of the 11.6 million people, only 64% receives treatment for a serious mental illness, and 51% of all youth between the ages of 6 and 17 receive some type of treatment for mental illness. And last but definitely not least, let me go back. Last but definitely not least, 50% of all lifetime mental illnesses begin by age 14. And 75% by age 24. Now, I do want to notate some of the common warning signs for mental illness, which is feeling sad or withdrawn for more than 2 weeks, trying to harm or end one's life or make plans to do so, severe or out of control risk-taking behavior that causes harm to self or others, sudden overwhelming fear for no reason, sometimes with a racing heart, physical discomfort, or difficulty breathing, significant weight loss or weight gain, seeing, hearing, or believing things aren't real, excessive use of alcohol or drugs, drastic change in mood, behavior, personality, or sleeping habits, extreme difficulty concentrating or staying still, and intense worries or fears that get in the way of daily activity.
Okay. So we know that mental illness can be caused by traumatic experiences in life. We've also heard it said that it can be caused by a chemical imbalance in one's body, or it can be hereditary. Are those two things true?
Well, I want to point out this in regards to depression. Depression is a very complex disease.
Mhm.
So to suggest that it comes from having too little or too much brain chemical is not at all in factor. We want to consider many causes of depressions for its faulty mood regulations, genetic vulnerability, stressful life events, medication, and medical condition. All of these will play an important role if someone will actually develop depression in life. So I like to put it in a way that one treatment that works for one individual is not necessarily going to be the same treatment that worked for another. So where you will have someone that they are prescribed medication for an SSRI for serotonin intake or something like that, that may help for that individual, but maybe just psychotherapy or talk therapy will help for another individual and working through and processing cognition in areas. Okay. Now, for it's like with anxiety, anxiety is a natural response to a stressful situation. And basically, we all have some level of anxiety, which is quite healthy, actually. The problem with anxiety is that when it is not necessarily a stressful situation or a provoking anxiety situation at that moment, and you're not able to control what triggers it. So pretty much you're not able to go back to a level of homeostasis or equilibrium or balance or something like that. So which studies have shown when you have severe or long lasting stress, it can cause an imbalance in chemicals and things like that. Okay, so we all have that level of fear. Just imagine, you seeing someone that is scared of dogs.
Mhm.
And they see a bulldog coming, hearts racing, scared, you're tensing up and things like that. So that's a quite natural response to a fear. When someone has anxiety, they have those symptoms all the time.
Okay.
With any situation that could just triggers it. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. I do.
So that's when the problem actually come in and helping someone to start working through that.
Okay. So let's talk to the people who may indeed be suffering with a mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
What advice do you have for them to deal with their situation better?
For someone that's suffering from a mental illness, I suggest having a good support system. Whether it's family, whether it's friends, or whether it's a professional. I would suggest always having someone that's in your corner.
Mm-hmm.
And so we really want to be connected in some way with family, with friends, with a professional or something like that to help you, support you throughout that process or throughout that time.
Okay.
I also will encourage that individual to do a lot of self-care and taking time for themselves and getting to a place of balance for themselves, setting boundaries, saying no, understanding their needs and their abilities and things like that. Another thing would be to incorporate some level of physical activity into their daily routine. I encourage most of my clients that is not like an athletic type person or say, well, I don't like to go to the gym or I don't like to do workout classes, well, then let's encourage some type of walking activity or something like that. Maybe going to the park, maybe going to the pier. Peace and tranquility for some people is being around water or being around nature, doing something that will bring a level of equilibrium back to them and balance and peace for them. I really encourage that. I do encourage a lot of rest, proper sleep, looking at your diet also constitutes and help when it comes towards rest, like just try not to eat, very late at night, maybe nothing after 6 or 7 p.m. so that, your digestive system is not constantly working throughout the night. and you can get that proper rest, incorporating some relaxation techniques before bedtime, kind of having a bedtime ritual, and things like that to make yourself relax. I will encourage eating a healthy diet, lessen the sugar intake, lessen soft drinks, increasing your green leafy vegetables, limiting the amount of meat intake. It's okay to eat meat, but just eat like 4 ounces and be selective in what type of meat you eat. And then also I will just encourage them to do some type of activity in regards to being connected to like some type of community or social activity, or that they could be a part of something, because I think when you are a part of different community activities and involvement, it gives you a sense of purpose. And oftentimes, we could get caught up in the hustle and bustle of just the day-to-day life, and we lose our sense of purpose on what community and involvement and helping others actually will help in fulfilling some of our desires and how it ultimately make us feel overall.
Okay, all right. And so let's just clarify, all of the advice that you've given does not mean that if they need to take medication that they can do those things and not take the medication. They go together, correct?
Absolutely. This is what I really encourage, and I did mention that, was get a medical exam. Talk to your primary care provider. When you talk to your primary care provider, if it's deemed at that time that you need to see a psychiatrist, talk to a psychiatrist, get the help you need, because some people do benefit from medication. And some primary care providers will go ahead on and provide you with the medication that you need, as well as get you connected to a therapist and things like that. So medication along with talk therapy has been very good. Some people don't need medication, some people do. But I will encourage anybody to talk to their primary care provider to make sure it's not any underlying medical conditions going on first. And then sometimes they will go ahead and treat your symptoms and things like that, but then you want to get with you a therapist and everything as well. And then for conditions more so for serious mental illnesses, you really want to talk to a psychiatrist, because your medication probably needs to be a little bit more managed than just seeing a primary care doctor.
Okay.
And when I say serious mental illness, I'm talking about someone with maybe schizophrenia, maybe with a personality disorder, bipolar disorder. You want to be with a psychiatrist that also can work in alignment with your primary care provider and your therapist, for the continuity of care across the board. Everybody knows the same page and what's going on with that individual, and can work together as a team, as well as having that support system from the family.
Okay, all right, very good. So when we speak of the family, now let's talk to the caregivers. In my research, I read where there are certain questions, when you're dealing with someone who has a mental illness, there are certain questions that you ask. Some of them are not always going to be comfortable, but it's very important that that particular person knows that you care about their situation. So there were questions like, how are you feeling today? How are you dealing with the diagnosis? What can I do for you? Can we spend some time together? It could be something like, let's go for a walk. Let's, just sit down and talk. And sometimes just having somebody to sit there with you in silence can make you feel a little better. So what other advice do you have for caregivers of people who are, dealing with people with mental illnesses?
Okay. Some advice that I have for caregivers will be to get connected with the local NAMI in your area. NAMI is National Alliance of Mental Illness, and they are an organization that provides support groups for family members of individuals with a mental illness. So, and they generally, even here in Mobile, they have the groups generally on the first Tuesday of every month, and they get together and provide that support to each other. I think, you know, sometimes as family members, when you're caring for someone with a mental illness, you could get burnt out. You know, you could get frustrated sometimes. It is not that you don't love your family member, it's that, you know, having to deal with some of the mood changes or the emotional regulations and things like that, it can also cause stress and vicarious trauma for the caregiver. So you will want to reach out and be a part of a network that's going back to the community, being a part of a network that you guys can support as peers and work together, you know, throughout that time, so that at the moment, you know, it may help you work through that process with somebody that have already experienced that with their family member. So I really would encourage that.
Okay, all right. So before we go, is there anything else you'd like to share with our viewers?
Not at this time. I do want to note, I didn't mention this earlier, but when you asked me in regards to individuals that have a mental illness, there's also support out there for them. It's a club called Survivors of Mental Illness, and that they can also go there to that club and, you know, be in the community and meet their peers and be able to have a sense of connection and purpose with other people that are also experiencing some of the same issues that they have going on right now. So that will be also a good support for people who are experiencing a mental illness as well.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll be sure to share that information, you know, at the end of this. So thank you so much, Jennifer, for sharing with us. That's, you know,
You're welcome.
That kind of knowledge is just invaluable. You know, again, particularly in the African American community, it's just something that we don't talk about. We struggle with it. So having, you know, an ally, you know, to be able to come on and just give us that free information, we just really appreciate you. So viewers, again, there is help available. You can reach out to Jennifer. You can reach out to these other organizations that she's spoken of. We'll have all of that information at the end. We want to thank you for tuning in. And as always, the Inspire You Network encourages you to stay safe, wear your masks in confined places, you know, be mindful in group settings, wash your hands, use your sanitizer, all of those things that we know. And more than anything, stay at home unless it's absolutely necessary. Help save lives. Again, thank you, and we'll see you soon.